What are plyometrics? Plyometrics are movements that require you to absorb force and then to reactively create force to rebound off of the ground, right? So we're thinking jumping, springing, hopping, exercises that require you to react with gravity. So who should be doing these? Almost all athletes should be doing these, especially if you are a runner, triathlete, and a cyclist even, believe it or not. So why should we be doing these? So we have to absorb forces from gravity, especially in running related activities. What happens here with gravity? It compresses our bones, our muscles, and our tendons, and it places a lot of strain to the soft tissue, muscles and tendons, as well as the bone. So what we want to do is be able to absorb the force and store energy like a spring and rebound off of the ground. So this is called free energy or passive stiffness. Super important for anyone who is running or a ground related athlete. Cyclists, your tendons get weaker over time. So it's also very important to incorporate some form of plyometrics to keep your tendons healthy. So quick lesson on what a tendon is and where a muscle is. You have your bones, and then you're going to have your tendon attached to a bone, attached to a muscle, attached to another tendon, and attached to your bone again, right? So that entire tendon muscle complex there is going to absorb a lot of the force that we generate from gravity. And if you don't train these things, you're very likely to accumulate some kind of bone stress injury or tendon overload injury, also known as a tendinopathy. So, what are plyos? They are exercises that you spring off the ground on. Who should do them? Probably all of us if you're an athlete. And how should we do these exercises? So the key to plyometrics is to start with what your body can tolerate. There are three key plyometrics which we'll talk about today. One is going to be an ankle dominant joint movement or an ankle dominant plyo. Then we have a knee and hip dominant plyo. And then we have a full chain plyo, right? So full chain means your ankles, hips, and knees are equally absorbing and creating force, right? So we'll start with the basics. A lot of us have seen videos that are really aggressive and whatnot, right? Like our loaded squat jump that we did earlier. So what we want to start with is something more basic, body weight based, low velocity. So we start with our pogo hops. These are ankle dominant exercises that are low velocity and you're really flexing from the ankle joint itself. In a pogo hop, we want to be light on our feet, but still generating force. What I mean by that is we don't want to stomp on the ground. Think about how a ninja would be as they're jumping. So we want to be using that tendon, compressing it, but then rebounding off the ground. If you're stomping, you're probably not absorbing much energy. You shouldn't feel like a jolt either. It shouldn't feel like a thud. So we have a double leg and a single leg that you want to do on these exercises. Next, it's still ankle dominant. We have our lateral pogo hops. Lateral pogo hops are exactly what they sound like. You're doing side to side jumps, low velocity and low height still, right? We're dominating it with our ankles, right? Same idea applies, staying light on your feet, going side to side, always starting double leg first, and then progressing to single leg. Why do we do this? When you're running, sometimes there's uneven surfaces. Sometimes you turn. If you run on a track, you definitely turn. And you put forces that are not straight linear through your ankle complex, your bones, and your tendons. So what we want to do is prepare your ankle, joints, tendons, ligaments for the demands of non-linear forces, right? Which is not straight ahead. So again, double leg first, and then starting with some single leg as well. So we talked a lot about ankle dominant exercises. What about our knees? We have these things called patellar tendons. These are tendons that are in the front part of our knee. Our knees absorb a lot of force, especially in the age of super shoes. Our knees take on a little bit more force. There's a lot of quad, vastus medialis and lateralis activation during a running gait. So what does that mean? There's a lot of forces going through not only the muscles, but also the tendons there. Some of you may have heard of runner's knee. That's a common thing. However, part of runner's knee could likely be a patellar tendinopathy or tendon overuse injury. So our squat jumps, same idea. It's just a little bit deeper, higher velocity, double leg. You're squatting down, jumping up. Again, think about landing like a ninja and jumping like a ninja. We don't want to be thudding into the ground each time. We're just going to do double leg in this phase of introductory or elementary fundamental plyometric movements. We don't yet need to go to single leg squat jumps. Those are quite advanced. The likelihood of injury becomes much higher. So our next hip and knee dominant movement are lateral jumps. So lateral jumps are important for track runners, trail runners, and believe it or not, marathoners as well, and cyclists. Why? Our hips also take on lateral loads. So do our knees, right? We want to prepare our hips, knees, ankles for the demands of lateral movement. So in this movement, you are jumping single leg, side to side, almost like a speed skater. Again, the same rules apply. Think like a ninja. You want to be absorbing forces really well. Right? We've talked about increasing performance. The key to performance is not getting injured. So hip and ankle dominant, hip and knee dominant exercise here. Again, lateral jumps, loading through your hip complex, your knee complex, and the ankle complex. Our last fundamental plyometric exercise is going to be full chain, and they are split jumps. So we're combining the depth of a squat jump and a pogo hop, but we're doing it in a split stance. And you are staying with your heels floated. What that means is you're staying on the ball of your foot. So this is really important because now we're teaching our bodies how to switch our feet and switch how we're absorbing force. So there's a coordination component here as well. And you're also loading your ankle, knee, and hip together and absorbing the forces there and generating forces to spring off the ground. This is a more performance-oriented exercise that is preparing us for the demands of more intense single-leg plyometrics. Lastly, we have our advanced exercise, our loaded squat jump or our hex bar squat jump. These are to create power and to absorb overloading forces. If you're jumping up and down with a ton of weight on a bar, that's more weight, hypothetically, that your tendons, bones, and muscles should ever have to absorb. Why we're doing this? Massive power generation, and you are calling it bulletproofing. So you're able to tolerate loads that are beyond that you would normally experience while you're training. However, it's a possibility you still might. Think about the end of a race when you're sprinting all out. Those forces are extremely high. If you're a trail runner bombing downhill, those forces are extremely high. You may take a misstep and absorb forces that you are not trained for. That's where these advanced exercises come in, and they are more on the performance side of things. However, keep in mind, the fundamentals of plyometrics are where you need to start before you even think about progressing to these more cool looking exercises. So, how many plyometrics should we do and when should we do them? One rule of thumb that we should think about is not doing plyometrics, especially in the beginning, after fatigue. You should not try to do them after your long run, after a hard run workout. You're pre-fatigued. Remember, bone, tendon, muscle, tendon, bone. That muscle's already fatigued, you are likely to overload your tendon. Now, you need to activate the muscle. So if you are doing a strength session and you were to do some calf raises or some squats, right after that, doing some plyometrics can be very effective as long as you have not overly fatigued yourself on that exercise. You don't want to completely make your muscles go kaput. You want them still to have some juice to absorb some forces. How many should you be doing? Start with 10 and 3 rounds of 10. Build your way up to 20. You can do these starting twice a week. That is plenty to move the needle. Some research will show that you can do 120 foot contacts in one session. That's great. That will help you perform better. But remember, injury prevention and performance are not on the same plane. You have to start with progressing from injury prevention to tolerance of load, and then we can start talking about how to perform. The last thing you want to do is to use your strength training as a way to get injured. The goal is to keep you healthy and then PR at your race. So, point 1, don't do it pre-fatigued. Point number 2, pair it maybe during your strength session. These can be effective items prior to an easy run. Don't do it before your hard workout either, unless you are more accustomed to these exercises or you are really experienced as both a runner and an athlete in the weight room. You may be able to tolerate those strains. Last rule of thumb, give it 3 days apart. Your tendons are not like your muscles. They don't have as much blood flow coming to them to help them recover. So, give it more time in between. If you've been sore before from lifting, you know it might take 2-ish days, right, to recover. Your tendons might not recover. Give it 3 days. Last rule, rule number 4, 24 hours of soreness, normal, that's okay. You stressed your tendons as you're supposed to. 48 hours of soreness, okay, take note, you might have pushed it a little bit hard, but that's okay. It could just be an initial shock to the system. Keep an eye on it. If your tendon itself is sore for longer than 48 hours, you probably overdid it. Rest, take some time off, take care of the muscle, maybe get a massage, see a physio. If it lingers past that time, get some help, find a physio, a chiro, or someone who works with soft tissue as an expert to help you. So that's our introductory version of how to incorporate plyometrics as an athlete. Stay tuned. We're going to be talking about the next progressions of plyometrics, how to scale up, how to perform, how to do some epic loaded squat jumps, why you should do them, and how it's going to help your performance.